Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us here for Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the satellite imagery from yesterday, we had some clouds here coming across the Copper River Basin, and mostly into the Susitna Valley, but also down into northern Cook Inlet. Southeast coast here pretty good. Clouds to start the day with, but that diminished throughout the afternoon. Clear and cold over much of the interior, especially North Slope here and the northern Koyukuk Valley, Yukon Flats back out towards Selawik. And nothing going on here from St. Lawrence Island across the eastern Bering Sea. Next front out there to the west, pushing in towards Shimia and Attu today. And rolling that one more time, you can see bringing some increase in the winds and rain in that area. Moisture sliding westward here, brought some rain to Kodiak Island, and then some snow, a little bit of snow here across the southern Kenai Peninsula, Seldovia, Nome, and on in along the Bristol Bay area with some light snow, especially on the Bering Sea side, all the way down the Alaska Peninsula, scattered snow showers on Alaska. And the southeast coast, again, a lot of sunshine today with pretty strong northeast winds. High wind warning now continues for the greater Juneau area. And pretty good conditions along the North Gulf Coast. Still very cold up over the Yukon Flats. High pressure center up in that area, just a shade north of Eagle. Sitting right over them, so light winds. They're in some fog throughout the entire day today, sometimes visibilities as low as 1.5 miles. Farther down to the south, some clouds right through here. Northway getting some light snow, very light snow throughout much of the afternoon. Temperatures a little warmer there, but the gradient picks up, and Delta, east winds gusting to about 35 miles an hour there, temperature about 9 below zero. So colder temperatures there with the wind chill, but mid-minus 40s for the afternoon readings across the Yukon Flats. Light winds up along the Arctic coast and also down into the interior, but the higher elevations, pretty windy today. For example, Indian Mountain late this morning had a gust out of the east-northeast up to 55 miles per hour. Otherwise, lighter winds down along the southwest coast. And you can see the Panhandle here staying really nice. High wind warning continues for the Juneau area, the greater Juneau area, through tonight into about noon tomorrow for gusts to 70 miles per hour to continue throughout the night tonight and again the morning hours tomorrow. Less wind as you head down the Panhandle, and this weak trough here, maybe some moisture to the Queen Charlotte's, possibly Dixon Entrance, but should stay south of Annette and Heidelberg. And then the rain and snow here, rain Kodiak State Airport, definitely mixed there through Shelikof Strait. Kind of a widespread area of light snow, actually from Barren Islands there, westward across much of Bristol Bay, mostly along the coast to about Cape Newenham, and down along the Panhandle, or the Alaska Peninsula. And northwest winds, north to northeasterlies, 20 gusting 35 miles an hour there, bringing the chillier air down. So snowfall levels right down to sea level there, even at Alaska. And just clouds out around the Pribilofs, lighter winds on the increase, as well as the rain there for the far western Aleutians. For tonight, that'll continue to move eastward, so look for the wind and rain to increase toward Adak, not quite making it to Atka. High pressure, light winds, variable clouds here from the St. Lawrence Island area, right down across the Pribilofs to the eastern Aleutians. And this area light snow diminishing throughout the night tonight, but doesn't end completely. Still some lingering snow showers, mainly around the Kilbrook Mountains, possibly Dillingham, possibly Togiak. but more likely here from Pilot Point on down toward Nelson Lagoon, and then some mixed rain and snow showers still lingering around Kodiak Island. High pressure, cold temperatures once again hold over the interior, but there is some moisture with this trough coming southward, so some clouds may spread into the upper Yukon valleys, definitely across eastern Brooks Range. So that'll probably hold temperatures a little warmer, or they'll trend to rise a little bit from the colder readings that you would otherwise have if the clouds weren't there. We've got a strong 1,038 millibar center over the Yukon. Lower pressure here down toward the Queen Charlotte, so that gradient still maintaining itself for those 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts there across the northern panhandle. And for tomorrow, that continues at least until noontime. It may drop below those warning levels, but a day much like today there across all of the southeast coast. Should be clear here with the clouds off the coast from Yakutat to Cordova. Clear skies, light winds, Prince William Sound, great VFR across south central Alaska all the way north to the Arctic coast and beyond. Mostly clear skies and VFR for St. Lawrence Island, right down to Nunivak Island. Still looking at some rain and snow shower conditions here. Maybe just a chance there for the Alaska Peninsula on out to the eastern Aleutians. And then warmer temperatures with rain keeps it wet across the central Aleutians. And then for tomorrow, or for Sunday, that front pushes eastward slowly with a warm front coming across the Fox Islands there for rain, fog, drizzle, definitely lower flying conditions, probably some VFR at times, or some IFR at times, with the gusty winds, gale force southerlies at about 40 knots in the forecast for the central Aleutians. And rain and starting out snow, changing to rain in the afternoon there for the Pribilofs, showery and gusty west winds out over the western Aleutians, but it looks like high pressure both at the surface and the loft holding right over interior Alaska. Sunny skies, Kodiak Island with light winds, light variable winds actually in the forecast all along the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound area. Definitely looking at light winds over all of interior Alaska. But that should lead with a little bit warmer air aloft moving in with the upper ridge. Probably start to see an increase in areas of low clouds and fog. And again, some of that was going on over at Eagle this afternoon. Otherwise, still not quite as windy for the northern panhandle for Sunday. And basically north 40 knots there for northern Lynn Canal in the forecast. Still 30 knots for Stevens Passage. But sunshine throughout much of the midday hours there. For all of the southeast coast, temperatures definitely staying below freezing. For the temperatures down there today, mid-teens to mid-30s, quite a range there. Ketchikan up to 35 degrees, otherwise Craig was at 28, 30 degrees at Sitka, 16 in the state capital, but Yakutat pushed up to 28. Upper teens there, Cordova, excuse me, and at Valdez, with lower to mid-20s, or mid to upper 20s there. Seward over to Homer, then drop down to 12 at Kenai, 20 degrees Palmer, 4 degrees at Willow, and in the mid-minus 20s here for the McCarthy and Gulkana areas. Again, clouds, light snow holding up to -9 at Northway, but Delta there were those strong east winds, 3 below zero. Then you drop down to 26 below at Fairbanks at the International Airport with definitely a lot less wind. And then up to the north, Fort Yukon, 44 degrees below zero this afternoon, -21 there at Bettles. And temperature rising throughout the afternoon at Arctic Village due to an increase in the moisture coming southward of those clouds. They're coming from Mackenzie River Delta, otherwise -8 at Kaktovik, 2 degrees above zero at Barrow. And -17 there at Dead Horse, -19 at Point Lay. Otherwise, Buckland this afternoon, 22 below. Ambler -10, -9 both at Kivalina and Kotzebue. And warmer temperatures here down toward Nome with 13, 12 at Golovin, and a -25 degree reading at Huslia. And then 4 above at St. Michael, 1 degree above zero there at Amonic, 27 for Savunga, and 9 at Macoriac. There's McGrath with 17 below, and then temperatures warm down the river there up to 3 below at Bethel. And out Bering Strait, or I'm sorry, the Pribilofs, Right around 30 this afternoon there with St. George at 29, 41 at AKwx, otherwise upper 30s, lower 30s for the Alaska Peninsula, teens for Bristol Bay, Kodiak at 37. For the lows tonight, mid-30s there for Kodiak Island, really not much of a fall at all with the clouds, and again down to 0 to 20 above for the lows for the southeast coast, with the windier areas being the warmest, and mid-minus 40s. Call it 35 to 50 below here over the northeast interior. But again, depending on how much cloudiness comes southward, that's going to have a great effect on the temperature. And 15 to 25 below for the Tanana Valley. You can see 0-degree isotherm right out to the southwest coast, actually out to Nunivak Island. And lower 20s for the Pribilofs, 30s for the Aleutians. Forecast low of 40 for Shemya tonight. And then the highs for tomorrow, a little milder with that moisture coming in, so forecasting minus 27 for a high at Fort Yukon. And the Arctic coast here all above 0 tomorrow afternoon, 0 to 10 above, or 5 to 10 above, even the North Slope. Chillier, just a shade below 0 for the highs here in the forecast over the central and western interior. Teens again for Nome, 30 degrees for St. Paul. Teens south central Alaska, and maybe lower 20s over the southern southeast coast. Flying weather tomorrow, good VFR across the Panhandle. Actually all the North Gulf Coast here, maybe some marginal VFR. That should be off the coast. Some of that lingering around Kodiak. And then that area of snow, at least late tonight, early tomorrow morning, still producing IFR there for the Alaska Peninsula. Marginal conditions out to the west. Otherwise, that marginal VFR should stay off the Arctic coast, but could catch Barrow at times. Back out to the west, we'll see area IFR advances eastward here and a little to the north with that front, incoming front spreading over to Atka in the afternoon. VFR for the eastern Aleutians. VFR here all along the southwest coast, right up into Kotzebue Sound. And even Point Hope, western Arctic coast, looking really good. Maybe some marginal VFR from Barrow over to about Dead Horse. VFR right down into the Gulf of Alaska. And maybe some marginal VFR showing up right off the south coast of the Panhandle. Passes though, all VFR, probably right through the weekend for all these passes. And again, Lake Clark, Merrill VFR, ceilings visibility is unlimited for rainy, windy Isabel and Mentasta. With Tanita, of course, VFR there. Portage, also VFR. Chilkoot and White, VFR. And for the freezing levels, 2,000 feet here. That milder air, of course, brought the rain into Kodiak today. It stays about that way through tonight. And at the surface here, up to St. Matthew Island, out to the west, close to the Pribilofs, and then along the coastline to just off the Panhandle, and then 2,000 feet there from Adak and Atka on out west. As far as icing goes, none really to speak of over most of Alaska, at least the mainland areas, and maybe some areas of light rime icing possible here with that front pushing eastward there in across the central Aleutians, kind of hanging back there from Kiska Island to Attu. And looking at the upper air chart, the jet stream, big upper level ridge here settling into the northern interior, and then that northerly flow here bringing that batch of moisture down with it into the northeast interior, but it's probably will be dissipating as it comes into the state. A stronger northerly jet again continues over the Panhandle, holding that high wind warning until at least midday there over the southeast coast. Otherwise, pretty light wind flow across the Gulf of Alaska. The main Pacific jet well to the south here, right up into the Pacific Northwest. 9,000 foot winds. Still show some pretty strong winds here through the interior, 25 to 40 knots through here to the north, lighter, becoming more variable. Could see some northwesterlies catching Kaktovik there at the 9,000 foot level at 35 knots. And for the Panhandle, lighter winds in the south, 30 knots or so up to the north. Light winds all along the North Gulf Coast, Bristol Bay, the Alaska Peninsula. And then with that front, ahead of the front, 40 to 50 knot winds coming into the central Aleutians. Same pattern, 3,000 feet, 35 to 45 knot winds here for the central Aleutians, heading toward Nikolsky, Bristol Bay from the Pribilofs, all variable 5 knots. Northeast 5 knots for Kodiak. Light winds up across southern Alaska, the Gulf, and Prince William Sound. And the interior, 5 to 15, maybe up to 20 knots in areas. Light winds for the Arctic coast. And then those north to northeasterlies, 20 to 30, maybe 35 knots here over the central northern panhandle, lighter down toward Dixon Entrance. Turbulence-wise, with those, again, strong winds, moderate chop there, especially for small aircraft, probably even possibly severe for smaller aircraft. Moderate chop all the way down to Dixon Entrance, and then hanging back up along the Alaska Range there, across the Wrangell Mountains and pushing westward. Smooth to the north, smooth to the south, no turbulence expected out to the west. And then with that front, there's a band of moderate chop, pretty likely there for the Adak-Atka area, diminishing out towards Shemya. And after hangar flying, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health here in Anchorage. Thank you to Alaska Public Media for allowing us to bring you hangar flying. This evening, we are happy to have Gary Bennett from Northern Lights Avionics as our guest. Welcome to hangar flying, Gary.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. We're going to talk about something that doesn't happen very often. The Federal Aviation Administration is giving away money. It's in the form of a rebate, and we'd like you to explain what this rebate is about.
Sure, absolutely. The FAA has initiated a $500 rebate for general aviation pilots to install ADS-B equipment in their Part 91 aircraft.
And what types of equipment are covered by the rebate?
So the rebate pretty much covers most of the ADS-B out equipment that's on the market today. They do have information on a website that specifies which equipment, so you can know ahead of time as you're shopping which equipment is eligible.
And you mentioned there's an ADS-B out and an ADS-B in. Can you explain the difference between those?
Sure. So there's a mandate for people to equip with ADS-B out for people who fly in certain types of airspace. And what ADS-B out is basically is a modern day transponder. So it's equipment that switch your position to ATC and to other aircraft who actually have ADS-B in. So the ADS-B in receives people who have ADS-B out signals so that they can paint your position on their screen, you know, for traffic watch purposes.
So it's got a great safety feature as well as being able to help out controllers.
Yes, yes, it sure does. So the ADS-B out, you know, is made to help the air traffic system better pinpoint your position and pinpoint your position in areas where you could only dream of because radar wasn't available. And ADS-B in actually gives the pilot operator some benefit immediately in the cockpit with information about the traffic around them.
So it's only the ADS-B out that's required by the mandate?
That's correct. ADS-B out is the mandate, in is optional.
Do you find that most pilots are equipping within while they equip with the out functions?
Absolutely. In fact, most pilots who've come in to inquire about the system want the in, and there's actually some that are there's avenues to get the in without the out.
Does anybody do that?
There early on there was a lot of portable boxes that you can get that would tie into different iPads and whatnot, and display traffic and weather from the ADS-B in.
Oh, wow. So say I have a Super Cub and I don't have a lot of panel space and I don't want to increase my weight that I'm carrying. How much extra equipment is required to be installed?
So for the ADS-B out systems, basically what we're looking at now, what's been the most popular is really like a new transponder. Most of these new ADS-B transponders have everything built into them that you need for the GPS position, even ADSB out, is an option, and whatnot. So it's basically like putting in another transponder.
And that would be like the 406 megahertz transponder, correct?
That's ELT. The
Oh,
406,
ELT,
yes,
sorry,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So is that going to take the place of the old transponder the pilots have?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it's as simple as, for people who already have a transponder, it'd be as simple as basically changing that transponder out to a different one.
Okay.
For people who don't, it would be like putting in a transponder. The main difference with the ADSB transponder systems is they include a GPS as part of their solution. So you'd have a GPS antenna installation as well as a transponder antenna installation.
Wow. This is very interesting.
Yes.
I think we need to come back next time and talk a little bit more about the installations and where it's required and what the process looks like.
Absolutely, be glad to.
Thanks for being here, Gary. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope that you've learned something about what's happening to make aviation safer in Alaska and in the United States. We hope you will join us next time for another chat with Gary Bennett. And until then, fly safely.
Now you should be able to hear me. Closing off here, not quite closed off of the Bering Strait though, but on the increase you can see the narrow area, or the area narrowing of open water there in the Chukchi Sea, and ice continue to expand westward and also southward here, and kind of an increase, a slower increase here for Bristol Bay, Northern Cook Inlet, most of the ice there from Kenai and then on up into Turnagain and Knik Arms. Moving on to marine forecast tomorrow, north 40 knots for the northern Lynn Canal area and probably Glacier Bay as well. Gales for Stevens Passage, small craft advisories northeast 25 for Clarence Strait. Lighter winds here in the south coast, northeast 15 to 20 knots with just 6 to 7 foot seas. And then back into the gales there for this stretch of the coastline, dropping back to 25 for the north coast. And higher gusts through all these areas, especially the inner channels here, much higher than the 40 knots there for northern Lynn Canal, with freezing spray also for the inside waters. And then for Sunday, northeast 30 here for the north coast, northeast 20 to 25 down south with higher gusts, and northwest 25 now for Clarence Strait. Hold on to the gales again for Stevens Passage, and north 40, not much change forecast for Saturday or Sunday there for northern Lynn Canal. And for Prince William Sound, northeast at about 15, 2-foot seas, light winds northern Cook Inlet, and then south of the Foreland, small craft advisories northeast 25, pick up to 30 knots across Kamishak Bay, on down to 25 for Shelikof Strait, and a pretty uniform wind pattern here for the North Gulf Coast, the Barren Islands, and off the east side of Kodiak, all northeast at 20 knots, 7 to 9-foot seas. And then for Sunday, lighter winds, variable to northeast at 10 for Prince William Sound, north at 10 for the North Gulf Coast here, turning northwest, but only picking up to 15 knots for the Barren Islands, on back in toward Augustine Island. Light variable winds for Shelikof Strait, northwest 15 here for the east side of Kodiak, and light winds from the north-northeast at about 10 or 5 to 10 knots for Cook Inlet with just 2-foot seas. Out west, Bristol Bay, northeast 15 for tomorrow. Northerlies 15 to 20 knots here for the Alaska Peninsula, turning northeast from Castle Cape to Sitkinak. Sunday, swinging around to the southeast, 20 knots for the peninsula, east 15 for Bristol Bay, and light winds or variable becoming south, but only 10 knots there from Castle Cape to Sitkinak. Eastern Aleutians, Fox Island, especially on Alaska Island, 15 to 20 knot winds, and then increasing to 30 knots here. And then the gales are the Central Aleutians, 30 to 35 easterly gales from Adak on out to Shemya. Outlook for Sunday, southerlies 35 knots for the far western Aleutians, 30 knot winds here from the south-southwest for the central areas on over toward Nikolsky, and then southeasterlies at 25 for Unalaska Island. And for the Pribilofs tomorrow, light variable winds, 10 knots, 5-foot seas, northeast 10 to 20 here for the southwest coast, on up to St. Lawrence Island, east 20 for St. Matthew Island, and heavy freezing spray, especially from St. Lawrence Island on down to about Nunivak Island, and maybe out to St. Matthew Island as well. Then for Sunday, east 20 knots continues there, or becoming east of 20 for St. Lawrence Island. Small craft advisories, southeast 25 north of Nunivak Island, east 30 for the northern Bering Sea, Pribilof southeast 30, and then pretty light winds there south of Nunivak Island. Arctic coast from the central coast eastward to demarcation point, west winds 10 to 15 knots. Really light winds here on the west side, variable to east or northeast, north of 10 from Wales to Cape Beaufort. And then for Sunday, east winds, really light and variable in through here. Call it east at 10, south 10 there from up to Cape Beaufort, and then southeast at 15 for the west side of the central coast, and then kind of a really variable condition here, 10 to 15 knots, probably toward Kaktovik, northwest at 15. And for tonight, again, maybe some snow, lower flying conditions coming down with that area of moisture. For the eastern Arctic coast, some of those clouds keeping it a little warmer for Arctic Village, maybe down into the Yukon Flats. Otherwise, night, much like last night for all interior Alaska. Again, high wind warning out for the northern panhandle and the Juneau area with White Pass, wind chill warning, wind chills of 45 below. Areas of snow continue there. And then for tomorrow, not much change here. Southeast coast, all in the interior areas. Maybe some clouds lingering, didn't get them drawn in here up over the northeast, but nothing really significant. And no change through Sunday, as you can see, but less wind from the northern panhandle in the interior, more rain spreading into the eastern Aleutians.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.